if you were LDS, then you grew up or you were taught how important it is to follow the prophet. And the Bible talks about prophets and tells us that it is important to follow God's prophets, but not every prophet comes from God, right? So it's possible for there to be prophets who would lead us astray from God. What does the Bible teach us about how to discern who those are? Who's the real deal and who's the fake?
So God gives us two examples, or two ways, or two different things to know whether a prophet is a false prophet. The one I want to read here is Deuteronomy 18,
Okay.
Verse 15. He said, Moses, this is Moses talking. He says, Moses continued, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him."
Okay.
So Moses is saying that there will be prophets,
Right.
and you should listen.
You should listen to them. You should heed what they say.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the same time, how do you know if they're a prophet?
How do you know if this guy's really coming from God, speaking from God or not? It's a great question.
So in verse 20, he answers that question. He says, "But any prophet who falsely claims to speak in my name, or who speaks in the name of another god, must die. But you may wonder, how will we know whether or not a prophecy is from the Lord? If the prophet speaks in the Lord's name, but has predictions, or his predictions does not happen or come true, you will know that the Lord did not give that message. That prophet has spoken without my authority and need not be feared."
Okay. So he says the prophet's going to maybe foretell the future, or tell some knowledge that you wouldn't have already known another way. And then, so what's the test?
Well, the test that he says here in verse 20 is that if the prediction that the prophet gives, so if he gives any prediction of the future, or
Such
any
and such will
sign,
happen, this will happen in your life, or this will happen in our country, or whatever.
yeah. Though any prediction at all, even if the prophet has spoken other things in the future, or in the past, if he gives one false prophecy, he's not from God.
Right. So so it only takes one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So so you're saying that the prophet maybe predicted certain things in the future, somehow had the ability to do that,
Yeah.
and he got 8 out of 10 right? Should I listen to him or not?
According to Deuteronomy, no.
No.
You shouldn't.
It just takes one fail, right?
Yeah, one
Because
fail.
God is perfect. If God's really speaking, God's not going to fail even one time, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, one fail. So that's a great test. If anybody comes and says, "Hey, I'm a prophet of God," then you watch. You watch their track record. Now, sometimes that can't be discerned until later, right?
Right.
Because if a guy prophesies something that's going to happen in a couple of years, I'm not going to know and for a couple of years whether that really took place or not.
Right. Exactly. So sometimes it does take time to see whether or not they're a prophet.
Yeah, to test. Yeah. Okay, that's really good. So that's one test of the prophet, is their ability to predict the future, the things that they say, are they 100% true? Okay, there's another one, also in Deuteronomy chapter 13, so it's only a couple chapters away. This must have been an important theme to be addressed more than once. So in Deuteronomy chapter 13, in verses 1 through 3, this is Moses speaking again. He says, "Suppose there are prophets among you, or those who dream dreams about the future, and they promise you signs or miracles, and the predicted signs or miracles occur. If they then say, 'Come, let us worship other gods you have not known before,' do not listen to them." And he goes on to say that God tests us through those, whether we're going to follow or not. So this is a little bit different, because this guy is able to prophesy the future, and it does come true.
Yeah.
So does that mean that, let's just fall in? This is the guy we should follow?
Right.
So he says, well, slow down a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so he says they might dream dreams about the future, signs or miracles. The signs come true. Or even the ability to do miracles. Someone could do amazing supernatural works, and they're not necessarily from God.
Yeah.
So how does he help us to know the difference here?
Well, first I want to go back to Deuteronomy just for a second.
Yeah, they two kind of go together, yeah.
Yeah, so 18, he says, if they speak falsely, or they give a false prediction, that they're not a prophet.
So that's clearly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not a prophet. In 13, he says they give a sign and wonder that happens,
Right.
but then they lead you after a God you don't know
Right.
or haven't heard of, and that's not taught in the Bible, then he is not a true prophet. So God is kind of squared away here. He says
Yeah.
if they give a false prediction, they're a false prophet.
Right.
But he also says if they give a true one but lead you astray, they're also a false prophet.
Right. Right.
So he shows both sides, whether they give a true or a false.
Or they don't. Right.
Yeah.
So that's good. So he's got this kind of double approach that you could use two criteria to measure up. So he says here, if they say, "Come, let us worship other gods you've not known before, do not listen to them." I mean, realistically, how many prophets or false prophets are going to come and say it that way? They're going to come out and say, "Hey, come worship a false god."
Yeah.
Right? They're not going to do that.
No.
But he says you have to compare like what they're saying about God versus what God has already revealed about himself, right? Or what they're saying versus what's already been revealed then becomes the kind of test of the prophet. It's kind of a truth test, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, a truth test and a positive and a negative test.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. So that's really helpful because, again, if you're coming out of Mormonism, then you were taught to follow the prophet, but you can see here that there's a little more to it than that not every prophet deserves to be followed. And so it's up to you now to figure out how to discern, to develop your own faculty of discernment so that you can follow voices in our culture or religious leaders, whoever they might be, who will not lead you astray from what God has already revealed about himself. I hope that's helpful to you. Thanks for watching today.